dash, yeah. Poor people gonna rise up and take what's theirs. Don't you know you better run, 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 run. Oh, I said you better run, 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 run. 'Cause finally the tables are starting to turn. Talking about a revolution. Yes, finally the tables are starting to turn. Talking about a revolution. Talking about a revolution, while they're standing in the welfare lines, crying at the doorsteps of those armies of salvation, wasting time in the unemployment lines, sitting around waiting for a promotion. Don't you know, talking about a revolution sounds.
Hello. Good morning. Hello, and good morning, everyone, and wish you all a wonderful day. As we see, we are already in the third day of the conference, but I feel like we are here for 1 week. I see people are talking to each other. We already found many things in common. Already plans are coming up for future partnership, for future cooperation. So here we have one more day for working together, for coming together to new useful ideas and impactful ideas for ourselves, for our activities, but as well for the community that we do represent here. Therefore, after 1 day where we focused on the future of southeastern countries, and we are talking about youth in decision-making process, here we are in this day that we focus on the human rights. In this International Youth Conference, it couldn't have missed the topic of human rights, and more particularly, we will approach during the session the diversity and inclusiveness. And I would like to start the session with a quote that it says that diversity is the one true thing that we all have in common. And I think that also it's worth mentioning, and I would like, before passing the word to our guest speakers, to whom I would like to thank firstly, in the name of the team, for being here with us during the conference time, and for sharing from their involvement, from their experience, and from their achievements and performances, and as well personal involvement and results. But before going on, I'd like to present you the panel. So we have together with us Ms. Helena Višnik, co-founder of BFEM Feminist Festival in Serbia. We have as well together with us today Ms. Biljana Džinova, LGBT and human rights activist, Helsinki Committee of Human Rights from Macedonia. Thank you for coming. And we have with us as well Mr. Teodor Bogojevski, writer and student in Skopje, Macedonia. Thank you for coming. So 2 hours focusing on human rights. But because we talk on human rights, well, we have at the basis back for in 1948 Universal Declaration of Human Rights. And I'd like to state and to share with you the very first article of this declaration, which I think it would be a very good start for our session. And this article says that all human beings are born free and equal in dignity and rights. They are endowed with reason and conscience and should act towards one another in a spirit of brotherhood. So this is our basis, this is what we want to focus today, but not to take the word even longer from our guest speakers, I will pass the word now to Helena.
Good morning, everybody. You suggested me to say a few words about me. I'm not a fan of biographical notes, but I'm one of the co-founder and program director of BFM Feminist Cultural Center and Feminist Festival. This festival is a result of the cooperation between Serbian, regional, and Sweden feminists, and it's not the story behind it. It's very simple, because the other colleague which started in this big feminist adventure is Kristina Washolm, Swedish journalist and feminist also. I'm also a lecturer and a coordinator of feminist media program in Belgrade Women Center for Women's Studies for the last 3 years. And this program is also a result of cooperation between BFM and Belgrade Center for Women's Studies. And I finished my PhD studies in the University of Novi Sad. Gender Studies was the department. So I'm, before all of that, feminist activist, active in feminist movement in Serbia for the last 10 years, and I maybe more. I'm 41 now, and that's the biggest part of my life, and I think the most important part of my life. And I'm one of those which think that feminism, it's not struggle, it's the way of living, and also the way to live very happy and active living for me. So I prepared for you a very good interactive super media presentation about feminist struggle against misrepresentation of women in media. And I choose this battle of society because I think the ground of society as a media, because I think that media is a ground where is the most important demonstration of power from the one side. From the other side, it's the place where we have the process of construction of human identity. And also, for me, when we create women images, it's always the diagnosis of certain society, because when you translate dominant matrix of women's images in media, you can obviously see what is the message and what is the idea of society about women roles. And then I put my USB in computer and realized that I saved completely different presentation this morning. So yes, and I will send it to you. So okay, it's happened, and I decided to change my topic in the last minute. So I have 10 minutes to prepare some notes about feminist struggle at all in Serbia. Before a few years ago, I wrote small publication with my colleague Katarina Lončarević, the great feminist and great theoretics from Belgrade, and the name of those small publication is Feminism and Solidarity. And in that book's publication, actually, we interviewed Stasha Zajovic, the great feminist and leader. It's not a good word for a feminist concept for me, one of the founder of the Women in Black and one of the most active feminists in Serbia. And when I asked her and said, Sasha, tell me, what is the feminism for you? And she said, it's the always intervention at certain social, political, economical context. In that moment, I realized when you want to analyze some, not just activism, some process of social changes, you have to, first of all, to analyze and to deconstruct the certain political and social order, because there is no universal fight, and from the other side, there is no universal women identity. All of us live different lives in the different countries with the different political government, and it's I think one of the most crucial level which we have to include in our analysis. So when I think about contemporary Serbia, it's hard to define country, because you can say and mark as an anomy, anarchy, destroy country, but for me it's deeply separated state with no consensus regarding to all dominant social question. For me, dominant social question in Serbia is the war crimes, war history, LGBT rights, feminization of poverty, but there are not question of vital, how to say, važnost, vital importance for our governments. So the question about gender equality and emancipation of women are on the bottom of the political agenda. From the another side, we have the diagnosis what is the lives in Serbia for women today. So I just give you a few factors which determine the lives of women in Serbia today. The term domestic violence, increasing influence of the church in both public and political sphere, patriarchal construct of female sexuality, media oppression, poverty. General trend of retraditionalization currently is reflected on rehabilitation of deeply, deeply rooted traditional patriarchal stereotypes regarding to the roles and the duties of the women in Serbian society. And for me, the feminist answers was the bravest part of history, last history for Serbia's society, because the feminists in Serbia and in Riga also opened one of the key questions in our society, and they were enough brave to pass the boundaries. Physically boundaries, because they started to cooperate during the 90s, or during the warm times, and it was the very strong anti-military and anti-nationalism movement from the one side. From the other side, they bravely entered in parliamentary politics and started to the process of gender mainstreaming during actually in the beginning of 2000 years, and then they very, very quickly realized that still, if we got some process of democratization, patriarchal system are dominant in our parliament, and they really continue to fight in the area of Roma rights, LGBT rights. I have to say that women organized first gay pride in 2001, which is finished in blood and big violence. And from the other side, the second main committee was also fulfilled with the women on 2009. So I think that the feminist voices were the bravest, the more progressive, but somehow they were not, and still are not visible in public and media discourse in Serbia and region, I think so. And for me, it is confirmation of a methodology of oppression system. It's not important always to analyze presence of some voices in the public and media discourse. For me, sometimes it's more to analyze which voices are excluded, because it's some kind that we can see what is important for our government and for our political order, which picture to send it to all. And for me, BFM as a new space for a new young, when we started the idea about BFM, one of the crucial paradigm for us was to open space for a new generation of activists and feminists. When I speak about speaking about new generation, to share our knowledge, but without any hierarchy. And it's my experience in the cooperation between regional and Sweden and international feminists, that we always share our experience, our knowledge, but without any hierarchy in the states, in the politics, and in experience. And that for me is one of the biggest message of feminism. And also never forget, because feminism is now became somehow very popular word in the fashion industry, in the pop industry, it's not that kind. It's some kind of corporate and white feminism. And for me, feminism is always political act, and never forget that. And we speak about political, it's some kind of process and possibility to have a power to change. That's for me is feminism, and never forget that it's not only struggle for emancipation for women, it's a struggle and somehow process of producing solidarity with all groups which is victim of oppression. So that is for the beginning from me. And sorry for this great presentation. I'm still sad, but never mind. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The presentation was very good, because it cannot not be good as long as we are talking about what you are doing. Mm-hmm. And then it's it will definitely, because you transmit our actors, our actions, of your beliefs. So then it's very important as
Thank you for understanding.
as
Yes.
sharing this information. Okay, so we have started with the feminist struggle in Serbia, and a key word that we heard, it was solidarity, and the solidarity as a possibility of having the power to change, because we saw that it can have impact at social, political, and economical level and bring social change for the new generations. In short.
It sounds very smart. Okay.
It was a message that I took from your speech, and I think that it's very important. And also, before passing the word for our next guest, Diliana.
Good morning, all. Hi. It's very difficult to talk now after Jelena because it was so powerful speech, emphasizing all the important things on which feminism is based. And in this place where I will continue, I will probably criticize the feminism in some places, but then we can open the discussion. Before we continue, thank you for inviting me. I'm very happy to be here, excited, and even though I speak on these kind of events very long time, I'm always nervous, and today I'm also nervous. Especially that I will talk about some topic that I'm still learning. It's a place that I'm still exploring and learning, but I choose this topic only because I had some recent experiences and I thought it's important to share them with you. And even before that, when you shared my name, I'm sorry, I'm nervous. I will come back to that. I work with Helsinki Committee for Human Rights as a program manager and with LGBTI Support Center as advocacy manager, but I'd like to state that here I'm talking only about my position, not the position of my organization, because sometimes my words can be a little bit radical and I don't want to put in danger the integrity of the organizations that I work with. So that's it. I can continue. So when Kalia called me to send to her a short summary of my speech, I was actually in Vienna working on organizing European Lesbian Conference. It's an event that should take place in early October this year. And the basic idea, the basic goal of that event was to gather all the lesbian voices from across Europe in one place to be heard, to listen to different perspectives from lesbians from different parts of Europe, from different classes, different societies, etc., etc. But being there, working with mainly organizers from Western Europe, I was shocked and surprised that many of them completely did not understand the socio-political cultural context that we are, as a lesbians from eastern part of Europe, are coming there. And that was one thing, but the other thing, which was even more shocking for me, was the internalized capitalism and this capitalistic approach. So if you open, now it's changed, but if you open that time the web page of European Lesbian Conference, the first thing you see is a big table of how much money you should pay to enter the European Lesbian Conference as a participation fee, and how much, I don't know, you should pay for enter the party afterwards, or how much you should pay for lunch and dinner during the conference. And for me, coming as a lesbian from this part of the world was excluding to so many of us who economically cannot afford that. And then somewhere down there, with the smallest letter you can imagine, you can apply here for fellowships. And instead of encouraging women from lower economical classes to apply, to have that in the top of the list, because for me feminism is that, as you said, solidarity on any grounds, on any levels. So I was very angry, and Kalia wrote me, and I was late with this. I was postponing answering her like for 2 or 3 days or something like that. She was very patient to me, but then I said, okay, Kalia, I will talk about this, about the intersectional approach and how important it is. Because when we talk about movements, there is no such a thing as the love of my life. And my favorite feminist, Audre Lorde, would say, okay, I have many loves of my life. You will see it in the... So this is the... Yeah. No, Audre Lorde is one of the biggest loves of my life. So when I met her, not physically, but in her writings, it was like, oh my God, this woman, this is what we need. So she was talking about intersectionality even before the term was coined. in the late 80s. And she says there is no such a thing as a single, there is no such a thing as a single issue struggle because because we do not lead single issue lives. And that's the same for lesbians. So we cannot say, okay, we are fighting for lesbians, but that movement to be represented only with white middle-class lesbians from developed countries. The other women must be represented in that movement. For example, just to make this plastic example, I'm a lesbian from a working class family from a small town. And compared to Anna Brnabić, now she's actual, the prime minister she's also lesbian. I am white, she is white. But the difference, so in this our identity composition, if we add the social class or economical class, here comes the difference. So I'm from lower economical class, she's from higher economical class, but also, and the difference between us is huge. In her statements in BBC, CNN, and all the major global outlets, she says that she never experienced homophobia in her life, while I have experienced physical violence because of my sexual orientation. So only putting this one difference between us, the situation completely changes. And I can move it even forward. I will take aside Brnabić, now it's not interesting. I'm still in the equation, and I'm still this working class lesbian, white from small town. And if I compare with a working class Roma lesbian, then the situation is again completely different. Because this Roma lesbian, if she's my age, she's also working, etc., being Roma, being black, is discriminated and excluded and voiceless on a completely different level. So as a leader, as somebody active, as a feminist, we must not be blind on this issue. So I don't know how much you've heard about intersectionality before. I don't know if you've read something but just briefly for those who are more interested, this is a term, even though many feminists, especially women of color, in the 60s and 70s and 80s were talking about this without giving the name of intersectionality. One of my other loves, Kimberly Crenshaw, in 1989, she coined this term in a legal term. And because she was an activist for a civil rights advocate, and her focus is on the law on anti-discrimination, and she is working with anti-discrimination mainly in her life. She coined this because of one case she had of one woman named, I forgot the last name. She applied, black woman, she applied for a job, and she did not get the job. She believed that she did not get the job only because she was black woman. This is happening in USA. And the judge at that time did not find the ground for discrimination because they said this employer employs black men. So race is not an issue. And this employer also employs white women. So your gender is not an issue also. So you did not get the job because you're not competent. It's not because you're a black woman. But if you deeply analyze the case, she couldn't be compared with black men because they're men. And the men, black or white, are higher in the scale of privileges in the society. And also, we cannot put her in the same box with white women because they are white. And her race plays huge influence on the decision of the employer not to employ her because she's exactly black woman. So this specific combination of intersecting of these two specific social identities she had was the reason for her not to get the job. So working through this case, Crenshaw built this term, intersectionality, and now this term is getting into the legislation. Even now in Macedonia, I don't know how many of you know, we are preparing the new law on protection of discrimination, and there are places where we are putting the intersectionality as a ground of exclusion and discrimination and oppression. So this was just to explain what it is. So in general, what it means that when we intersect different types of oppression, like for example, in some place because we live in that kind of society, and we have to consider that as an activist, as a young leaders that you are, and you will create the new politics, that the places where we cannot talk that we have only homophobia, because that place intersects with xenophobia, with racism, with sexism, with heterosexism, with ageism, nationalism, etc., etc., etc. And then our action must consider that bulk of intersections, of oppressions in our activism. I'd like to walk a little bit, because as I could see through the program, I'm the only one from the LGBTI community, so I don't want to talk only about the lesbian movement. I like to spread it a little bit on the LGBTI movement in Macedonia. In the recent protest we had, I mean, we are protesting many years against this, against this previous regime, but what changed when in the political protest against the regime in 2015, you could see in that joint movement against the regime, you could see rainbow flags. You could see for the first time LGBTI activists recognized as somebody who is participating in that joint fight for better, for building better societies. And that was very powerful to see. On this big meeting or a protest, how you can choose how to call it, I call it a meeting, on 17th of May 2015, you could see rainbow flags mixed with these nationalistic flags, which I didn't like. I don't like nationalism and these national identities, but never mind. You could see in this huge protest, one of the meeting protest / whatever, one of the biggest in the country, probably in the history. I don't know, maybe you know the numbers better than me, but more than 50,000 people were on that square. Rainbow flags could be seen, and that was very powerful for me as this lesbian from a small town, you know, excluded and discriminated, to see those rainbow flags, even though I'm critical on the rainbow flags, but that's for the coffee break. Later, but what happened later, 1 year later, yes, 1 year later, on the 17th of May 2016, because we again had different protests, it was connected with abolition of the so-called president, and on every day on the protest, we were all of us together again. So on 1st of May, for example, the whole protesting against the regime, was having this banner for rights of the workers, because it's 1st of May, the day of the workers. And everybody were cool with that. So we said, okay, 17th of May, for those of you who don't know, 17th of May is the International Day Against Homophobia and Transphobia. And we said, okay, for 17th of May, we will put a banner in front of the crowd, in front of the protest, with message that is relevant for LGBTI community in Macedonia. And we didn't want it to provoke so much, or at all actually, so that's why we put one very important sentence who is relevant for every socially excluded group protesting here. Silence equals death. So that's the message we put. Silence equals that. So we didn't say lesbians, faggots, gays, queers, whatever, I don't know. We said silence equals that, which is relevant for every group. But at the corners of this banner, we had these pink triangles. For those of you who don't know, this is a symbol that the queer community, queer movement is using, because in the Second World War, the homosexuals who were sent in the concentration camp were marked with a pink triangle, like, yeah. So that's a very powerful symbol for us, because we identify with all the victims in the past years. And what happened in that protest, one of the groups from students, not even the Social Democrats, not the political party, not the biggest group, one of the groups, they stopped the protest and they insisted we remove the banner. Because they said those pink triangles are ideology that not all of the people are agreeing. So where is here the solidarity, and where is here the joint struggle? If I was fighting for this regime to fall, if I was fighting for the student protest, or all other protests in this country, why the solidarity cannot be reciprocally returned in this day only, for this protest only? Luckily, I'm very loud, so at the end we had like 2 banners, one with this so-called colorful revolution and one with our silence equals that, and we passed. But I think it's very important to mention this section. And then later, provoked by this, on the Pride weekend the same year, we've invited representatives from Social Democrats, and we have opened the debate, because in 2016 we were still in the regime. We still didn't have the elections, the government still hasn't changed. And we invited representatives from social democrats, and we asked them direct questions, not just from them, from the civil community, civil sector community, left organizations, social democrats, etc. We asked one simple question: where do you see LGBTI movement within the overall political movement to improve the situation in this country? The answer was, wait. Now we have bigger problem. Now it's more important to take Gruevski away, then we will talk about LGBTI. So this is the situation on solidarity in Macedonia. Very briefly, I will just not to stay here. I will go back to the feminist and lesbian movements to close with it. Not to keep it here with this bad, bad taste. Still, even though so this is the place that I'd like to criticize a little bit, some parts of the self-called feminist. We still, as a lesbian, as an activist, we are struggling with some groups of feminist movement, even lesbian feminist movement, who don't recognize the trans people, who don't recognize trans women as women. So then if we go back in this soup of identities, and if we add this gender identity and gender expression, in that complex soup of identities, then we have additional new whole, new thing, of new group of people who are excluded on a completely different level. And yet, also in that same complex, we are still put in the position to explain that gender is non-binary. Because even our fellow lesbian and our fellow feminists, they still put us in two gender boxes. You are either woman or a man. You are either male or a female. And you cannot be, I cannot be what I am, and I am somewhere in between. And we are, so, because if I put that in my soup of identity, in my mixture of identities, my gender, my queer genderness, or my gender non-comfortness, I'm again excluded on a completely different level. And that, in a way, contributes to our invisibility. And when you enter in the invisibility, it's a vicious cycle. Because if you're invisible, then you're not considered when we talk about the problems of the community. You're not considered. You're not invited at the table. So if you're not invited at the table, you don't share, or I don't share, my position at that table. So in the solutions and the programs built, again, of course, my things are not included because I wasn't even sitting at the table. Or in some cases, for me, worst cases, some other people take the seat and talk in my name, which is also oppressive, which is also internalized and replicated oppression that we are living in. I see you, all the faces, sometimes smiling, sometimes typing in your cell phones, but I didn't see one Roma people here. You're all white. I mean, I'm sorry, but I don't see black people here represented. And who talks about the black people here? Who talks about Roma people? In Macedonia, we have big Roma community. Who talks about people of different groups, marginalized and excluded? If I can finish, then we can have session for questions. Thank you. I think that you are the future leaders. You are the young activists that are involved and will be even more involved in the political dialogue, and you will create the situations for all of us in the future. And that's why I think for all of us who have the stage and who have the microphone, to use it, to use our privilege to make a space for those of us who are silenced or so-called voiceless to step in and to speak. And again, if I refer to the love of my life, Audre Lorde, one of my loves, Arundhati Roy, there is no such a thing as voiceless people. There is either deliberately silenced or on purpose not heard. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Biljana, for your great input. Yes, so we have continued and we saw the methodology of the oppression system, but there is an idea that I'd like to take very much from this session is that we don't live single issues lives. So we live in a diversity and inclusiveness society, and this is that it gives us power and motivation to continue and to believe in what we are and in our own identity and to feel good in our own skin. So this is very important, and thank you very much again. And with this, I would like to pass the word for Theodor.
Can you hear me? Okay. Thank you for hearing me here. I'm Theodor Bogojevski, 25 years old, student from Macedonia, law student. And I'll try to give you my perspective, my life. I'm disabled for 9 years already, and I'll try to take you step by step with the barriers that people with disability, more specifically people in wheelchair users, are dealing with in everyday life here in Macedonia, Skopje. There are many barriers we have in Macedonia, but I'll take the three main barriers we have, and I'll try to separate them and to rank them by importance they have in our lives. So there are infrastructural, social, and law barriers that we have. The less important is the law barrier. I know it sounds strange, but the law can be improved in every group, not only with the disabled, can be improved in the LGBT, in the human rights, in the working groups, and every majority or minority groups. So it's not linked directly with the disabled. The law can be perfect anywhere. But in Macedonia and Skopje we have two, for me, I don't know, surprisingly bad laws. In the constitution of Macedonia we are called invalids. And if you buy food, you will know that it says valid till date, I don't know, some date. And I feel if it's not valid, then it's invalid. So it's not, you can't use that food. And I'm gonna say I feel very valid, and I have maybe few invalids in my body, but as a whole I feel very valid. And that the constitution, as a word, is very bad. And and we should find a way to change that word in Macedonia. The organization using the word people with special needs, but I think we all have special needs, so that's not the real word to use. Somehow we need to find the translation for disabled. So maybe a guy with people with invalidities or something like that. We separate it on parts, not as a whole. That's the one law I don't like, one law rule in Macedonia I don't like. And the second is we have help from the government, free help from the government. It's not important that it's a low amount of money. The important is that it's free. We get it for free because we are only disabled. We didn't earn it on any way. It don't motivate us to go out, to be in the society. They only give it to us because we are in the wheelchair. We are privileged to get money from the government because we are in the wheelchair. And that is keeping the disabled guys at home. It's not putting them in the society to help and improve the awareness about people with disabilities and their needs. So about this law, I think that it should be changed with to obligate the people with disability to be involved in the studying, working, looking for a job, or even be socialized, so we can build awareness. Not giving them money to stay home and be in a room depression as they are. That's the law barrier. But it's not only the law that is bad. We have a nice law rule in Macedonia that says that every public object should be accessible for disabled people. And as you can see, this is not accessible object and is working very fine. It's not sanctionized or anything, so it's not only the law that is bad, the people who break it and the audience that pass the stairs without even be aware about the somehow of crime that it's made. But we'll talk about that later when we go to the most important barrier. Second important is the infrastructure. I don't think I need to talk a lot about the infrastructural barriers that we have. It's ramps we don't have anywhere. It's the sidewalks. It's the car parked on the sidewalks. It's everywhere around us. The barriers, the infrastructural. But the most important barrier about our lives is the social barrier, because the social barrier is the trigger to move every other barrier. What I mean by that is that when we will be aware that I had an experience with the mayor um, mayor of one city who asked me, what do you need? Where do you need a ramp? And the problem is that I don't need a ramp. We all need a ramp because we should be prepared. We should prepare the society to be more secure and more accessible because we are all potentially disabled. We should build our society for, God forbidden, if it happened to us. In Macedonia, there are 15% of disabled people, so there are good chances of someone here, God forbidden, or close to you, be in a wheelchair one day, and that's not the end of the life. You should build a better society, you should build a more accessible society, so you, if you someday be in a wheelchair, not be too late to live your life fulfilling with a job, family, and everything, independently. So when we'll start thinking that it can happen to us, that we are not gods, we are not unbreakable. I was thinking that 10 years ago, now I don't, of course. But if we start thinking that it is about us, not about the people in wheelchair or doing something for something else, we should build a better society for us and our next generation, or I don't know, because it's happening and we are all breakable. On the other hand, when I was thinking about methods, how to improve the awareness with people with disability, how to make you all, when you come in the hotel, think, oh my God, there's steps and the wheelchair guy cannot enter. How to make that feeling in the guts. I was thinking that the best machinery for, unfortunately, in Macedonia or on the Balkans is the political parties and the government. They have the most, they are most able to make propaganda with mediums and etc. So my opinion is that people with disability, I'm talking about wheelchair users, because they are mostly involved with the infrastructural barriers, should be included in the local government, then in the central government, not only because of the ideas the people with disability have, to give to the mayor or the, I don't know, someone from the central government. But if the mayor has a colleague or the city council have a colleague in a wheelchair, they will learn about his needs. They will have maybe empathy about his needs. And they will all start to build a better society, infrastructural from bottom to up on the pyramid of hierarchy in the political system. So for me, including the people in wheelchairs directly in the system of politics is maybe the best way to build awareness among the politicians. The politicians there can on the easiest way, find a solution to build that awareness among everyone in the public. Who to blame? Who other are the people with disabilities in Macedonia. They are quitting the fight at the very first moment. They're sitting home, they're looking for money to get home, they're not entering in the society, they're not in the society, they don't lead a social life, and every emission or every TV show with a guy in a wheelchair is so depressing. It's always about asking for charity or everything. And after that show, it's normal that the audience that is looking at the guy in a wheelchair to see me with a head like this and feeling sad about me, because they are putting that as a normal thing. If a guy in a wheelchair is on a television, it must be a depressing thing, it must be hard thing. No, we have fulfilled life, we have happy life, we have happy moments, and we have problem same like everyone. If my gut hurts because I'm angry, and her gut hurts the same, we have the same amount of problem. So there is not a bigger problem than other. Other thing that I wanted to say about the gut feeling, the problem is that, I'll maybe say bad metaphor, but that's how I feel, because everyone, the majority, will react if they see a kid raped by an older man, because the kid is innocent, it can do nothing about it, and everyone will react from the guts to stop the raping of the innocent kid who can't act on any way. So when you have that gut feeling, when you feel inaccessible stairs or object or anything, because we are socially raped, we are innocent people who can't be help in that situation, then we can say that we have fully awareness of the system, and social awareness and self-awareness. As I like to say, we should better go to dentist when we have our teeth healthy, because when the teeth are rusty, it's already too late. So let's go on a dentist with a healthy teeth and build a better society for if some teeth rust. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Theodore, for your input. So another keyword that we heard during our session, it was awareness, self-awareness, and awareness, raising among us awareness. But this not just to be waited that this to be built by somebody else, but to get involved in the all aspects of social life. Each one of us, because as you very well said, we all have special needs. And now, because I'm very sure that you are pretty anxious with coming with the questions, because during the session I saw many people writing them. So yes, let's start. We'll start with the first round of, okay, we have 4 questions now, and then we will continue. Yes, okay. We should wait a few seconds.
Hi. Yeah. Woohoo. Okay, so my name is Helena Gandra. I'm originally from Portugal, and I'm studying in Germany, and I'm working in Brussels. And you said, Liliana, that our actions have to consider all the sections and movements. So my question is, shouldn't we support the human rights as a whole instead of separate all approaches and groups? Because sometimes I feel that groups subdivide themselves. And I would like to say, yeah, that the fact that there are no Roma in the room, or, for example, that there are no black people or any other minority, doesn't mean that we don't stand with them. That doesn't mean that we don't empathize with them. So sometimes I think, does it make sense to subdivide humans in groups, or aren't we just all equal at the end? I have friends that are black, that are Roma, that are all the same, and I don't consider them by groups, I consider them by being humans. Thank you.
We can go with another question, yes, and then we will.
1, 2, 3. Oh, okay. So, okay. Loud, but nice. So, since I'm part of the organizational team, and I was directly involved in the selection of participants, in the creation of the program, firstly, I want to invite you, because for sure we will have 16th edition of the International Youth Conference, and I want all of you here, particularly Biljana Ginova, to help us to involve as much as possible diversity in our group. Because we are trying, but we are only 5 people. So working 5 people and involvement as much as possible, diversity in the group, believe me, it is not easy. Secondly, one of my Roma friends wrote me yesterday on my Facebook message. He didn't manage to come on the conference, but I am representing him here as Roma person. And third element, tomorrow we will have, I'm just finding answer to your questions. Tomorrow we have one, I'm very proud that we will have one of our speakers for the first time on the conference. He's black. I don't want to divide people. But yes, yes, okay, then. So, okay, as I said, we are a small team and we are working basically on voluntary base. So that is our capacities. We have IPG team, thanks to the IPG team for supporting us. And thanks to the IPG team, now we are having Dio Cavalli in our group. So that are the reasons. But, as I said, I'm inviting all of you to support us in order to have more diverse group next year. Okay.
Thank you. Okay, we can go. We have 2 more questions in the back.
Hi everyone, I'm Alina, originally from Romania. I live in the UK. Thank you very much for a very insightful presentation. You guys are truly impressive, incredible, and an inspiration to us all. My question is for Ms. Jelena Vishnich. I'm sorry if I butchered your name, I hope not. Or for anyone else that would want to answer. Do you think that quotas in the workplace for females are beneficial to society as a whole? You know, it's the age-old question, meritocracy versus affirmative action. What do you reckon on that? Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, we have one more question. Not yet.
Okay, now. Good morning. My name is Gordana from Novi Sad, and I have a question for the three of you. Thank you so much. We really needed this energy here, and it's a great way to start the day. For Jelena, I have a question for you. It's disturbing right now in Novi Sad, unfortunately, how many of my friends, which are women, don't consider themselves feminist. And I find it quite sad. And have you noticed this trend? And what is it that we can do about this? Then for Biljana, I've noticed, unfortunately, I know some people that are human rights activists, but only selective human rights, most often excluding the LGBTI plus community. But the question I have for you is, do you think that Ana Brnabić being the prime minister right now is just a foe, just trying to get political points? And the last one, for Theodor, what is it that we can do? And this is honestly what I'm asking. What is it that here, the 60 of us, can do to help everyone and make the lives better for everyone? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yes, we have one more question for this set of questions, and then we will go with the answers. Maya?
I suppose, yeah. Okay, my name is Maya Stanovska. I'm from Macedonia, actually, and I have several questions and comments, or somehow. I'm working at the Institute for Human Rights at the moment. I'm project coordinator there, and I faced, and actually every day we're facing, regarding Ms. Jelena's speech. We are facing the point that the gender equality here is considered in our society as a fight for not equality for a starting position, but actually for extra benefits, like extra advantage for the female part of the society. Is that the case in your society, in your community? How can you comment on that? Because when we fight for gender equality, especially the male part of the community, they think that we fight for something like beneficial, something extra which do not belong to us. That is one. And for Biljana, actually I have been participating in 4 pride parades in 4 countries, and the point is everywhere the local community, the comments are, it's okay. You said that we have so many bigger problems now. You know, we have to do this and that. We have to face this and that. And actually, one of the comments was, they can love whoever they want. They can be with whomever they want. I just do not want them to take the focus and the intentions of the government on that subject. And that was very painful for me to hear. I would like your comments. And for Theodor, thank you very much for the inspirational speech. And I hope that we can somehow manage to accomplish and add value to what you said. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your questions. We can proceed with our answers.
Okay. So I'm very happy to hear the questions. I like to talk, so thank you. Okay, I will mix them up. I will start with Biljana, just to clear the things up. So first of all, thank you for organizing this conference for so many years until now. It's important to have this kind of conference. Otherwise, how can we open all these questions and how can we improve the situation? My answer to you is yes, I'm available, and please do not hesitate to contact me to develop models or something, how to approach people of all diverse groups in the society relevant for this conference. I think you are targeting the Europe in a whole, or European Union or Western Balkan. I don't know. We can talk about it and we can develop models, because if we have like 10 people here, black people talking, Roma people talking, Roma women talking about the this early marriage violence that Roma women are experiencing. If we invite these women here speaking, I'm sure that Roma students will apply for this conference, because those are the issues that are relevant for them. This is only on the top of my head. But if we sit down and work through this, I'm sure that we can find a way how we can make this group more diverse and people to be represented. And with this introduction, I move to the other question about human rights as a whole. I agree with you. Of course, the human rights are something that we should have it in our mind, and we should fight for that all the time, all the way. But there's the trick. When the Black Lives Matter initiative started, I'm proudly wearing this. And actually, it's made by trans women sex workers, black trans women sex workers, as a fundraising. The response from the white community was, but you know, all lives matter. And while that sentence is true, is racist in the same time, because when all lives mattered, until Black Lives Matter started, the black community was invisible. The people who are in wheelchairs are invisible. Lesbian community is invisible. Roma young women are invisible, etc., etc., etc. So I agree with you, we fight for human rights, but in the same time we need these separate fights only to emphasize the specific struggles that each of our group has. And as we saw in my previous talk, not just the groups, we have also intersections between the groups. So that's why solidarity is very important to fight for human rights in general, but through specific, supporting specific struggles. Anna Brnabić, my favorite question. Pinkwashing, hashtag, yes, I agree. I think my position is that Ana Brnabić is a political decision of Vučić for him to strengthen his position as a president of the country, and also to throw a bone to the European Union, like, okay, I'm player. What Ana Brnabić done for me is hurting, I think, with positioning her in this high position and giving these statements that Serbia is not a homophobic society, that she never experienced homophobia. She's doing damage to the LGBT movement in Serbia, who went through so much violence and so much blood, and so many our friends went through that to reach this point, and somebody to ruin that all by saying, what are you talking about? Serbia is not a homophobic society. While she's sitting in her bubble of protection of some very high class, social, economical, cultural, whatever, not connected at all with the LGBTI community and with the real lives of LGBTI people in the society. So for that, from that perspective, she done huge damage. Yes. But there is another perspective that I'd like to mention. When you're answering your question, you can answer about this one. I'm sorry, I took the moderation.
I want to just keep it on this paper.
Yeah. There is another perspective. Honestly, she is coming from this political party of Vučić, who is not, we know where it is on the spectrum. And honestly, I like to see the faces of Vučić supporters who are homophobes, who are these traditional homophobes. I like to see their faces, in the same time, looking how she puts her in the prime minister position. So it's there and there. And the last question, to be honest, I did not understand it by the full extent. It was about what I was talking about, something before, or?
Is it working?
Yeah.
Yeah. My question was in the direction of what is your comment on the people's opinion, general public opinion. For example, the local citizens in the cities that I went on a pride parade, for example, their comments were, we have so big problems, other problem, economic problems, so many issues going on here, and they're fighting for their rights, LGBTI rights. And they can love whomever they want. That's considering the LGBT community. They can be with whomever they want. But what is the point of them be so loud and so all over the place, when we have so big other issues?
Yeah, that happens here as well. That's why these political parties are afraid to put LGBTI issue in their agenda, because they're afraid they will lose votes from the citizens who share this opinion. My answer is the same as I spoke before. We do not live single issue. Many people are economically dependent, and they cannot out themselves as gays or lesbians or trans or non-binary. Many people, on the other hand, did not get the job only because being, so it's interconnected. But the cultural shift and the social shift is very difficult. It needs a long time to achieve this cultural shift in the societies and the language of the people and support of the general public to change. But I think it starts with the political will of those in power and changing of legislation. So if we have legislation for protection of discrimination, if we have legislation for hate crimes and hate speech, if we have gender recognition law, if we have same-sex marriage equality, etc., then I think that that's the first step to start changing the opinions of the citizen, and of course doing that through public debates, not just in a fast procedure in some closed cabinet, through public open debates so everybody can participate and share. So thank you.
For providing answers for the questions. You would like to continue?
Yes, exactly. So I will try to summarize all answers through the one, because you have similar point of your questions, and they are grounded on the idea that we are living in the era in the moment where we don't need feminism struggle, because a lot of women will say, okay, I have all rights, I'm equal as a man, I'm on the top of the management of my corporative firm, or I'm the professor on university, but on the same time, a lot of successful women on the high position forget that actually feminist struggle open possibility for them to take that position from the one side. And I like to, to inform them, okay, now if you deny feminist politics, stop work, stop take your daughters to the school, stop go to the doctor, and stop have a right for your body, because actually feminist struggle give it possibility and give it that rights to you. From the other side, a lot of women on the position forget they are privileged to be there. And I think the one of the crucial questions for feminism today is to be conscious of your privilege. And when I, in this moment, sitting here together with you, I have to be conscious that I came here with a plane, with a Lepa Brena actually, but we were in the same plane, with a plane that my friend Biljana, who is the owner of her car, wait me in the airport and took me here, and that some Roma women don't have internet connection to see the application for your conference. And always when I speak from the position of white, heterosexual, middle class, educated woman, and not forget that some there are women who can't pass the boundaries of their not just territory, flat and her body and her mind. That's the one answer. And I'm also confused with this whole how to say, wave of retraditionalization, especially in the young generation. Sometimes I think that younger generation are more conservative than our grannies. And I see that trend that motherhood is, again, one of the top achievement for a lot of women from your generation, that the position of mother give you only legitimacy in our society, that you are not enough good if you're not mother or a married woman. On the today, when you follow Instagram and social network, is completely new trend of super hot and super fancy or super sexy motherhood, and somehow it's very frustrated for a woman who can't be who can have, how to say, image as a top model, or who can't be and pretend that are a perfect mother, which are active on the public and the private sphere after 1 month of they gave the birth. And again, I think that we see that this traditional repression of otherness for women roles now somehow transformed to some new Puritan repression, but repression of plastical perfection. So today, for a young woman, it's not easy to be perfect in the school, faculty, and the private sphere also, and it can be frustrating at the same way as the traditional role were frustrating for the mostly women. And another question was about quotes. I don't know. Sometimes I'm pro and sometimes I'm contra for quotes, but I think there are formal instruments for women emancipation. It's not always put how to say, the feminist, not just feminist, emancipated voices in a political sphere or a political arena, but from other side, sometimes it can be motivated for women that 40% to be on the list. And I see some pleasure when we speak about Ana Brnabić. It's obvious that she is the product of neoliberal, capitalistic, and homophobic, and the patriarchal system and social order of Aleksandar Vučić. But from other side, I'm really, I can be very satisfied when some men from right wings or some homophobic men have to say that, okay, our prime minister is lesbian, Croatian, women, and very young. So, yes, she's Croatian also. And so for me, okay, quota is not the best solution, but sometimes in some conservative and traditional society are very necessary. So that's it. Because, thank you.
Thank you, Elena.
So, can you hear me?
Yes.
The question was, what can you do about me personally, not about disabled? So you can all buy me beer. That's one thing. No, but really, what can we do to make the change? First of all, it's not only you that should make the change. The people with disability should get out of home and approach to you so you can know their needs. Another thing is, unfortunately, I'm missing guys like you. I'm in a political party, and I'm missing guys like you, hardworking, inspirational, and strong, to be part of the party so we can make the change from inside, and not asking the party. And I don't want to beg someone else to do the change for me. I want to make the change from inside by myself, be on a function, not to ask the persons on the functions to do the change. I think that we should all involve in the political system directly, so we can make the change from inside, and not asking someone else to make the change for us, because they're only going to collect the political points and the votes. That's all. And remember about the beer.
I'm with him.
Thank you very much again for your input as answers to your questions. And now we can proceed with a new set of questions. We already see some hands rising. Okay, then, yes. We have 3, 4, 5, 6 there. Okay, then.
Hello. So thank you for your speeches. I have a couple questions to Ms. Genova. Yeah. I'm participating in the gay prides in my town in Thessaloniki. I come from Greece. But as a straight woman, I always get the same response, like, thank you for being here, thank you for helping us for our struggle, but you don't really get us. That's the kind of feeling that I'm getting. And there were actually people that told me that because I have different sexual orientation than them. So sometimes I really feel that I'm not invited in the dialogue. So do you think that's a problem in the LGBTQ community? And plus, in my city, in Thessaloniki, we have a really conservative archbishop. I don't know how to say it, but the head of the church in my town is really conservative. So during the gay pride, they always say, oh, we should pray for those people. So in 2014, there was like a kind of incident that was really hard. During the gay parade, there was this black guy that was paid to dance around with heels and short skirts. So that really provoked a huge issue with the church. And do you think that incidents like that hurt the community? Because if you really want to make your voice heard, and if you really want to fight for what you believe in, incidents like that may cause trouble and may cause more damage than actually make it work. There was a dancer, a black guy wearing a skirt and high heels, and he was dancing in front of the parade. And even though I really believe that he can wear and he can do whatever he wants, there are really many conservative people that really didn't like it, and they were even more against it. And that, I think, is like really hurting your positions. I don't know if it was the heels or the skirts or the dancing. I really don't know, because I didn't ask, but yeah. The question is, maybe sometimes things like that should be not contained, but you should be more aware that if you really want to make it in your dialogue and you really want to pass what you're saying, maybe you should, yeah.
Thank you for your question. We can go for another one. Yes, and then we saw some more raised hands there. Where is the mic now?
It's here.
Okay, and you have a question?
Yeah, I do. So, hello, thanks for the speeches, and I'm Chiara from Germany. And I think, like, still living in a heteronormative and patriarchal society, I was a bit confused why we now talk about, like, females being in the feminist movement, because I think we don't address that there are also other gender forms that can be feminists, for example, like men, who can speak up for women. And I think, especially here, it's also reproduced that women shall fight for the right, but also men can do that on the one hand. So I would be, I would like to ask you what you think and how can a transparency about this be created. And on the other hand, when we talked about intersectionality, I still have and you mentioned it as well, that there are certain feminist movements that are superior, kind of, or that they think they are superior. And how can a room shaped and created where people like really meet on a horizontal basis or scale? For example, people, especially from different ethnicity and the intercultural, because most of the time there's also the stereotype that there's the radical feminist movement that is led by white feminists and not the other forms. And I would like you to know, to have a recommendation how the different streams of feminist movements can be combined.
Thank you very much. Okay, we can proceed. We have, okay. Yes. We have two mics there. So, which one you want?
Hello. Thank you for your speeches. I'm Sarkan from Turkey. I have a question for Biljana. Sorry. I have a question about pronoun usage because I think it's an important issue in LGBTI plus thing. I know that you define yourself as the gender you were born in your, as you were assigned at your birth, but so I know that I can use she pronoun for you, but do you think we have to ask every single person we met the pronouns he uses? Or I just ask the persons that I know to be queer, but it's not ethical at the same time because it's like you're creating a stereotype because you're looking and thinking that he's probably a transgender man, so I think I should ask the pronouns he uses, but it's like creating a stereotype. So do you think we have to ask every single person the pronoun they uses?
Thank you very much. Yes, we can go for the next question.
Hear me? Yeah? Yeah. Need to push it. Biljana, you're the superstar, I think, because my question is also for you, and I'm Gabriele from Italy. Provided that your political criticism over the newly appointed Serbian Prime Minister is totally legitimate, I wanted just to address your concerns about her not really representing the LGBT community and the topics that are at the heart of the LGBT advocacy activity. Well, it reminded me those topics about Angela Merkel or Hillary Clinton not really representing women in politics. As I mean, they always wear pantsuits, and they are not really, or Condoleezza Rice back in times, not really representing women. So that also kind of linked to the feminist argument. But it happened that only once Italy had a black minister, and there was huge fuss around her. I mean, she was not a good minister, but all the political propaganda around her was because she was black. And that, on the other hand, raised awareness about the condition of black people in Italy and helped us advocating and being active in making the point about black people in Italy, which are quite a huge minority. So why don't you think that having a lesbian prime minister in Serbia can somehow help the LGBT cause?
Okay, thank you. Yes, we have there the mic already.
I raised my hand earlier, so I have a question for Ms. Jelena Višnjić. I'm coming from Bosnia, and we have a lot of taboos when we come to religion. And I'm interested, what's the attitude of feminist community, or if you are protecting your community, maybe what's your personal attitude about women wearing hijab, you know, and burqa stuff? I mean, do you think it's their choice, or men and religion force them to wear that? So if you don't want to answer this question, because this is a big taboo in Bosnia, I will understand it. So, but we can talk about it on coffee break, just to know. So this was my question, a little bit unusual.
Okay, thank you. We do have still more waving hands.
Hello, my name is Dilek. I'm from Turkey also. My question will be about the definition of feminism. For example, I'm a Turkish woman, and I support the women's rights, and I support the economical integration of women, but I don't consider myself as a feminist. So the same thing like in Middle East, there is a group of women who don't consider themselves as a feminist. They called their name, the group name was the Murabitat. They save the Jerusalem as a woman group in a conservative and patriotic society. They are fighting to Israeli army, and they are saving their right of life, their right of pride. But many European articles consider them as a feminist group. But I watched their interview, but they don't say we are not feminists. We just would like to get back our rights. But they are women, and they are really fighting for that. They are really doing interesting thing in the Middle East. So that's really interesting for me, because we should mention the whole woman who protect, or who try to protect, or who try to save their right as a woman. Like, we should mention them as a feminist, or we should find another way to have mentioned them. I don't know. Like, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Yes, 2 more questions for this set, and then we will continue. Yeah. Okay, it's okay then. So we can continue with answering this set of questions. Please write down your questions, and then we will come back to you. That's all right? Thank you. Yes.
I started forgetting.
So I can think that men can be a feminist, but not as a creator of feminist politics, just as a supporter. It's very simple, but smart answer for me. Yes, they can join us in our fight, but not as a leader, as creator of our political agenda. And for me, as a definition of feminism, it's not me, it's Bell Hooks actually, but I mentioned on the beginning, feminism during history has had different strategies against the patriarchy, against all types of oppression. But only think what's similar for different eras. That is not only struggle for women, it's struggle for all groups which are victims of oppression. And it's based on the solidarity with the marginalized group. So I think it's very important for us to have in our rows different women with the different perspectives, but I can't speak in the name of some Roma women. I should listen to her and to start to create policy or spaces where her voices can be visible and, how to say, speechless. So I also, as a white woman, can't be creator of the Roma agenda because I don't have that life experience. But I can be her sister and help her, and she can help me also. But without any hierarchy between us, because I think a lot of white feminists take that position of hierarchy and learn them. So I have a lot of colleagues from Sweden because, as I mentioned, BFM is the result of cooperation between Swedish and Serbian regional feminists. So a few journalists asked me a few times, okay, what did you learn from the Swedish feminists? Because they are living in some certain order and organized country with a lot of laws and the legislative, and I'm not. But I said, it's not that I learned from them. They learned from me also, and it's some kind of sharing our knowledge, and that's the feminism, not that she can learn me how to be better feminist. We have to together learn, all of us, how we can produce the society of social justice. That is for you. And so who was next? You. Actually, no, first of all, it's a very tricky question. Because in one way, I think that women has to have a choice to choose the way she dress, the way she think, the way she study. But when men instrumentalize women for religious goals, and that for me is oppression. But if she decided to take hijab only if she wants and to take the religious madrasa school, okay, that is her right. But I often go to the Bosnia and I notice a lot of younger women who started to take hijab, and I was living in Mostar and in Bosnia before war, so for me it's the result of the war. And for me, it's the result of the retraditionalization and the money who enter in the education, religious education, so as a way that she wants to express her religious ways, okay, but when the men put hijab on their agenda to show how Islamic countries are good, so for me it's oppression. So was it clear? So okay. And now I'm not so sure that I understand your question. So, but when you were asking me, I was thinking about this big conference when Angela Merkel were guest and the daughter of Donald Trump, Ivanka Trump. And then Ivanka Trump pushed Angela and said, are you feminist? Are you feminist? And Angela, I don't like her politics, but in that moment she was great. And she said, I'm not so sure that I'm feminist. Because you can name yourself as a feminist. But I need your acting, I need your results, because it's very easy to say, okay, I'm feminist, and put the T-shirt, this is what a feminist looks like. But I want you to see on the society, I want you to come to teren, I want to see on the field, on the ground, and the way when you treat your colleagues, how you behave at your home, because it's easy for some of our feminists to be feminist outside, but when you, with your partner, okay, who will cook the lunch today, who will wash the dishes, who will take care of the children from the school. So it's everyday feminism also for us. So it's easy to say I'm feminist, but behaving is not so easy. And to put the feminist agenda in your private life also is not so easy question for women and for men also. So, did I answer on your question? Wasn't it? Because for me, the feminism is based on the question of solidarity, anti-militarism, anti-nationalism. Whoever address the army in the name of the nation, in the name of the state, I can treat it as a feminism.
Okay, this information is really useful for me, like for my part as a Turkish woman. But for Murabatat in Middle East, in Palestine, and they are protecting their right. They are in the field. They are struggling for the solidarity, and they are doing everything to get the right of living in the Palestine and for the crying. Yeah, that's why I'm asking. And many articles consider them as a feminist group in Middle East, in Palestine, but they don't consider themselves we are feminists. They say we just women who wants to protect their life.
But why do you think it's necessary for them to say that it's feminist? So, okay. She can call her name, her struggle, whatever she wants.
She has the feminist right to do so.
Yes, also.
She has the feminist right not to call herself feminist. So then I didn't understand. That's a problem. Yeah, now I understand the question finally.
Okay, so maybe you would like to continue? Because there were some other questions put by the people here.
I don't know where to start. Maybe I will continue after Jelena about your question with some of the groups in the movement are more superior than the others, and they take the stand and talk in the name of all of us. My comment, I don't know the successful model. I don't know the successful model. My suggestion would be to create these small groups, movements of specific groups. Like we have a group of trans people, like a broader group, but then we have a specific group of trans women who are sex workers. Or we have a sex workers as a specific group, and then this trans women sex workers is because it has very specific needs. It's not the same as a sex workers, and it's not the same as a trans community, but it's very specific because there are sex workers, trans women. And I think if we have more of these kind of groups, their voice will be more heard. Last year on a BFM, I had a huge struggle with one of their debate with one of the speakers there who was an activist against anti-sex work activist. Or I don't know how to...
Anti-surrogacy.
Anti-surrogacy and anti-sex work activist. And it's a woman who is, at the moment, who is not surrogate mother or who is not sex worker or anything, and she was attacking the position. She was taking this Scandinavian model that sex work should be, in some parts, criminalized. And on the other side, she's not a sex worker. You know, she's in whose name she's speaking. We didn't have sex workers in the room to take on the stand and to talk about that. So for me, that's problematic. She puts herself in a superior position because she's a higher middle class white woman, and she thinks she knows the best because she thinks, oh, these poor women who are and only she talks about women sex workers, not about men and other genders in sex work industry. She said, oh, these poor women, they're so oppressed, so they can even not see that this is not their choice like they think it is, but this is this internalized, you know, oppression we live in, so that's why they think that they choose to be sex workers. So that's the vicious circle of these who are in a superior position. They infantilize us in that level, so even when we make clear choice, they blame that choice on some other influence. So I really don't know the successful model, but I think organizing ourselves and grouping into groups, not dividing from the global fight for human rights, as your colleague said before, but grouping in these specific groups to empower ourselves, to learn the language. You open also the issue with the language there. To learn the language, how we can advocate for us, how we can represent us in the broader picture, I think it's very important. And here, when I come to language, I will move to your question about the pronouns. I do that, and I'm sorry if I make mistakes. I ask people about their gender pronoun, especially, because for me that's important. When I go to conferences, everybody asks me where I'm from, like from which country, and I don't have national identity. I don't identify with, so if they ask me, where are you from, and I say from Macedonia, that doesn't mean anything for me. I live there, I live here, I work with my community here. But now, maybe, because I go through, now you open the debate in my head, so I will share the debate in my head. I don't have. Maybe because I personally myself go through exploring of my gender identity and my not fixed position in the gender spectrum. And for me, it's important. More important is when I sit with Jelena or with you or with any of the people that I meet, and I become a little bit engaged in the conversation to talk about your gender expression or understanding of gender, or what is the preferable pronoun. And I use that then to know you better and not to offend you, to talk with you in, let's say, she form, even though you identify differently. So that's what I do, and I don't know if it's good. Maybe it's not good. Maybe I should stop doing that. But I do it only as some form of inclusiveness, some form to open the... And as for pronouns, in Macedonia, for example, we don't have the language, and that's also very bad. In English, many people go with she, he, they. So they like for gender non-conforming and non-binary people, but it's not a solution. I think we need to find better language to present. And also in my ideas, and everybody says, even now in this panel, I was presented as Miss, and I don't know what that Miss stands for. I don't identify with it. But they saw my name, and they pretpostavili su, assumed, I'm sorry, and they assumed that I go by she, so they put it. So that's why for me it's important to say, you know, yeah, I go with she. I'm not offended because politically I'm taking the women's position, but also in the same time I'm exploring the gender variances, and for me it's not fixed position. I'm somewhere in between that. So I'm sorry if I make mistakes, but I think we should talk about it. And after this we have a workshop on LGBTI, and I find it one of the places that is very interesting maybe to open it there also at the workshop. So whoever wants to join us in our workshop, because I saw 50 people in the gender with Jelena, come with us. We have only 7.
Okay, so
we can talk a little bit more. Okay, so I have new questions to answer. Yes, I talked about this. Women in politics, I'm not sure what was the question, because I'm saving you for last with Thessaloniki neighbor. What was the question with the women in politics? Yeah. Even though she's not directly representing the group, she's not. Okay. Yeah, okay, I think we answered that question. For us, it's important to have women in politics, to have lesbian women in politics, to have trans people in politics. It's very important, it raises visibility. But what women? We don't need Theresa May, you know, in the politics. So, I'm sorry again if I offended someone. And I think the last thing that I have is the Thessaloniki question. Okay. I love Thessaloniki. I've been to the Pride. Actually, I was talking on the Pride one year in 2013, so I wasn't in 2014. I connect here. I will continue here with what Jelena said, with a man, this men feminist and sitting at the table. Of course, hetero women and hetero people are welcome to sit at our table, but not to talk in our name. And they tell you that you as a hetero woman do not get them. Maybe they feel like that. Maybe they honestly feel that you don't get them. So why don't you ask them? Why don't you ask them about their existence, about their political stance, about what is important, and what can you do to support the lesbian movement or LGBTI movement instead of offering models from your hetero perspective. So maybe if you change the language, if you change the conversation with them, you will actually get them. And for me, the black, I'm quoting your words now, it's not my words, black man in a skirt and high heels as an incident, for me, I don't see the incident. I mean, that's a person who was, that's a person like male body in a skirt and heels, which is usually connected with female bodies. Sorry. Yeah, no problem. Was dancing on a pride parade. A pride parade is for that, for people to celebrate their diversity.
Okay, can we wait
Yeah.
let her to finish?
Yeah. So the pride parade is for that, for people to celebrate the diversity within the society, within the movement and everything. I don't see the incident here. And this narrative, we listen it all the time, but you provoke them. This goes for me the same that I provoke the people who attacked me because I was kissing my girlfriend. How did I provoke them? Hetero people parade every day, all day, kissing themselves, touching themselves, walking with their children, doing everything in public. Why they didn't provoke anybody? I see people dancing on the streets all the time, you know, like women dancing on the streets. They don't provoke anything. This man with skirts and heels and makeup provoked somebody. So no, I do not accept that language. We are who we are, and we will show that in public, and for us that's a protest. That dance is a protest, it's not a provocation.
So before going to the, would you like to add something for the as an answer for the questions that they were? Okay, so then we can go to a last set of questions. Okay, so just to have clear answers, I would like you to be very specific in your questions. Yes, so as to not have any ambiguity. So yes, where we have the mic. Okay.
We hear.
We have two mics in the same time, but let's go one by one. Yes.
Okay, it works.
Okay, it is somebody behind you as well who also started to. Okay, we can.
Can you hear me? Okay. First of all, thank you for your speeches. It was really wonderful. My name is Meryem. I'm from Bosnia and Herzegovina. And I wanted to ask you, how do we make feminism more inclusive for LGBT women, trans women, women of color, disabled women in our local communities and in our hometowns, first of all? And also, how do we battle trans exclusionary radical feminism, which I've noticed has been getting a lot of attention and has been getting a lot more popular lately, unfortunately? Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Yes.
Now it's on. So, I personally experience feminism as just pressing random buttons to get a reaction from the people on the streets. I'm directly included into the feminism. So I would ask the question, why the old unfriendliness? Because we're all on the same side and we work against the government. So that's my question. I don't know who's next.
Okay. Is it clear? Can you repeat the question?
Mic check. Okay. Yo. Why is the whole unfriendliness and fear from the, let's say, the heterosexuals and the rest of the society? Because we stand on the good side. Because I got nothing to fear when I have the truth, you know. When I stand for the good side, I got nothing to fear and no one can hurt me. So that's the question.
Is it clear now?
It's for all of you.
Thank
can
you.
even include yourselves with comments if you have.
Okay, let's go to the next question. We have a mic that is waiting here since the last session of questions, so we should let her say. Yes.
Hello, my name is Dragana. I'm coming from Serbia, Belgrade. First, question to Mrs. Jelena. Allow me to disagree with you about your statement that feminism is all about fighting for the rights of women. I think that, and also supporting the statement and the speech of Emma Watson, the ambassador of UN, that when she stated that feminism is all about equality of everybody, not only the woman. So. Yeah, I'm sorry.
So it is very good that you addressed the questions, so that any misunderstanding to be
Okay,
clarified.
I'm sorry if I misunderstood, but that was just my perspective of the things that I've heard. So I strongly believe that feminism is all about equal rights of everybody, not only the woman, because at the end of the story, we live in a society where we have women, men, we have different types of people who are claiming themselves like in different ways. And on another side of the story, for Prime Minister Ana Brnabić, I think it's a pity that she is only stated and tagged as a lesbian, as someone who is put on the position where she is just because she will gather some political points, because she's not only that. She's also a very great expert, very great economist and politician. And I think that in that context, we should respect her identity also as that. And about the girl from Thessaloniki, I'm sorry, I don't know the name right now, about the provocation that happened in Thessaloniki. I understand that was maybe not provocation because that person, that black guy, showed his identity in that way. But is it then a provocation if a topless woman take a picture of herself in front of Saint Sava temple in Belgrade last year, and that picture goes viral.
Okay, thank you for your question. We just have few more in that area. Your 4. Yes. Yes. Liridon?
Hello. Okay. Hi.
Good afternoon.
I'm Liridon, and I'm kind of now confused of talking or telling that I'm feminist or I'm a feminism supporter or whatever. But I have a thesis kind of that also has caused reactions, verbal reactions from extremist feminists. Because I mean, feminism is causing, in my eyes and in many other eyes, also lots of counter movements. As you also said, that lots of people are going more conservative nowadays. Maybe, I don't know, as a reaction to what, but I mean, my thesis would be that men, especially men, are acting in that way. That men might feel threatened because maybe nobody is actually supporting them to find their new role, because also men are in this changing time trying to find a role, but they are put roles upon. So they have to be strong. They have to show no emotions. And now my question would be: should we focus also more on men finding their identity, and if yes, how? And I don't mean to take away focus from feminism as for women's rights, but I want to add also saying, well, what about the men in this world that we want to achieve?
Okay, thank you for the question. Because we are running out of time, I would kindly ask you to be very specific on the question, and for more debate we will go in the workshop, okay? So very demanding questions, maybe that it weren't already addressed. Okay, so yes, we already have the mic.
Okay, thank you. Good afternoon. My name is Luca and I'm from Montenegro. I'm interested just the Miss. I apologize. Miss Biljana mentioned the non-binary, and I'm interested what is non-binary. And the question which goes to any one of you who would like to answer, I'm interested, where are the rights of females, LGBT population, and people with disability are the strongest? For example, in Europe, are those developed countries, and did they have certain strategies? And if they did, why they could not or could be implemented on Balkans? Thank you.
Thank you as well. And we would have to go to one more question. We have there somebody who's waiting for, okay, and she's waiting. Okay, 2 more questions and then, okay, very fast. Yes, please.
Now? Okay. So, hello, I am Miro, I'm from Greece, and I have a question for Miss Yelena. So I want to share interesting info about my country, and you can tell me if that implies on the Balkans as well, but I think we are worse. In Greece, we never had any woman prime minister. We hardly have any woman ministers and politicians in general. No leaders of political parties, and no, I don't know, members of the parliament. So I have a question on how can we gain the trust of people and integrate more women into politics and to represent us in a country that has been under men's leadership for hundreds of years. I mean, we're a state from 1830, and we've never had any representatives. It's so hard. And
okay, so already have the.
So yeah, I oftenly think, how can we do it? I mean, I studied political sciences, but I don't see women in any near future be, more active in the political stage in Greece. No mention being prime minister or ministers at a higher level, having more power in their hands, just that.
Thank you very much. Short question, please. Okay, then you keep it. And there is one hand waving very hard. over
Hello,
there. The
I
last
have a
one.
really short and but important question. My name is Rachel Rechev and I'm coming from Bulgaria. And my question is, do you think that men should find place in the leadership of feminist movement? If yes, what is your effort to involve men in the feminist movement? Thanks.
Okay, thank you very much. And with this, we finish the set of questions so as to let the time for answers as well. And we continue the debate further on in the workshop times.
Sorry, I forgot a question, Saya. It's not additional question, is it? I'm sorry, the concentration fell.
So you're a very active group. Thank you for that. But
yeah, we told you.
After 2 hours and 3 or 4 beers last night, maybe concentrate is not so bad. Okay. Answer for Miriam. So I'm not so sure. I think the feminism is completely open for different groups and trans women and Roma women. So I don't understand from which part of society or history you have that impression that feminism should open now for those marginalized groups, because those groups created feminist struggle at the same way as different women. So I have a good example. Before a few years, actually, we started cooperation with small feminist group. Actually, we helped one group to name them as a feminist group in small village in Serbia. And those groups decided to become politically active. They organized themselves, entering the, mjesna zajednica, urban communities. And 11 women enter and won in that elections. They said, we are here to get feminist agenda in this local communities, bodies. So I really deeply believe in education. So I think it's great that you have conference like this to hear different experience, and I think that you're a next generation of people who will create the political agenda and the policy in your countries. So continuum education for all of us, for different generation, and to try to open new space and spaces for a new generation, and not to forget, for me the feminist politics is to always re-ask yourself. There is no some kind of finished knowledge, finished state, or just always to reevaluate your work, the work of your state. And for you, you're under less to listen to me at all during this session, because few times I say that feminist struggle is a struggle for all marginalized group. And for Ana Brnabić, from which part of her work you realize that she's expert in politics? Because she has a position of minister for 1 year, and we got new mera štednje, how to say mera štednje?
These
measures for so she has great education, but I didn't see at all results of that education in our economical politics, and that's it about Ana Brnabić. And for a man in, so I really feel deeply empathy for you and for all men in, but how to say, you're always one step before us, so I don't think that it's my duty to create agenda for a man in this society. And I also think that men can be feminists at the same way as the women do. So feminist supporters, not feminist creator. So that's it. And it was your question also. I really like to cooperate with the men and to work with them, but however, I don't know. I'm not sure that men should be leader of feminist movement at all. That's it.
Thank you.
And also, I can't imagine myself as the leader of LGBT movement or a Roma movement or something like that. So, thank you.
Okay, so we heard one perspective, yes, of your questions.
I will start where you stopped. I will continue with this the fear of heterosexism, and the position of men. So I will first. I think becoming a man is one of in our cultures here, I don't know for Germany or for more developed countries that much, but from Balkan perspective, becoming a man is one of the most painful processes that I've heard of. When a baby is born, imagine small baby, empty of anything, and it's filled with this violence. Don't cry, be strong, you should take care of your sister. You should, put your emotions down. You should do this. You should do that. And it's, from my perspective, it's a very, the beginning, the place where this violence, man violence, later is born in the society, because these small babies were taught, because only they were born with penises. That's the only reason, instead of vaginas. That's the only difference, Only because these babies were born with penises, they were oppressed since the day they were born. So at that place, I agree, I understand with you. I think that's the place where we need to work to improve, to deconstruct that and to improve the position of a man. Because if we do that, then the men we can see them as an allies, and we will not fear them. Because the numbers, I'm going back now to you, of heterosexism, of male violence against women is so big that, of course, I'm afraid. Immediately, if I'm in a women's group and a cisgendered man enters, my body reacts. And that's not just my experience, that's experience of my sisters, that's experience of my friends, and that's experience of the women in this world that we live now. I don't want to be afraid from the cis man. I really don't. But until we reach that point, we need to work. We really need to, as you said, deconstruct these models and to build new models. This year in March, I had the honor to be at the Commission on Status of Women in New York, which is the highest body at the UN mechanism. It's the highest body who is discussing the status of women. That body has a chair committee consisted of 4 people. 3 were men. And it's not status for gender equality. It's not status for equal. It's not commission for gender equality. It's not commission for equal opportunities. It's not commission for feminism. It's commission for status of women. Chaired by 3 white, cisgendered, heterosexual men. So of course I'm afraid of you. I mean, not of you personally, but of the hetero, because you are creating politics that are relevant for my body, for my life, for my existence. So yes, until we in some way equalize ourselves or create some proper representation of us all, I will be a little bit reserved. I need to see if I missed some question. Yes, but your question from we can continue. I really don't listen to you, but we can continue. You can join us in the groups, either with Jelena or with me, in the LGBTI or gender, so we can continue this to talk. And the question... Yeah. So the last question, how do we make feminism more inclusive and battle trans-exclusionary radical feminism movement? I think we started answering this question many times during this debate by forming these groups, etc., etc. So that's why here, instead of answering, I will use one example. That's Helena Vukovic. She's a woman from Serbia. She's a trans woman, lesbian trans woman. And I think as a model, especially, I'm talking only about Serbia now, it's a very interesting model because she's a link of this radical, self-called radical lesbian feminists who are excluding trans people and trans women, because she's a lesbian, she's kind of connected with this group as well, and with trans community who is excluded. And she is an interesting model because she's a smart woman, she's very present in the media, in the general public, she's present in this, we were together with her in this group of some trainings with these radical feminists, and I could see the change of an attitude. Even, we talked with Helen about this yesterday, even one of them, who we know how trans-exclusatory she was, even she was sitting in a panel like me in a smaller town in Serbia, she said that she changed the political position on the trans women only because she spent more time with this woman and worked together or understood some. So it's a baby step. I mean, compared to the global picture, it's nothing. It's like one dust. But for our micro world here in the Balkans or in Serbia or in Macedonia, it's a huge step. And then maybe the movement will continue from there.
Thank you very much for your input. Theodor, would you like to add something?
Yes, is the mic on?
Yes.
Okay, the question about where we have the best rights in the Europe or wherever in the world, Sweden has the best right for people with disabilities. Why we don't have that here? Because we are still young democracy, and we're coming after, if you know, socialism, and our mentality is still young to build that kind of society and awareness about other groups, any kind of groups, minority.
Okay, thank you very much, dear guest speakers. Thank you very much for your input. Dear participants, thank you also for your input. So here we reached the end of our session on human rights, diversity, and inclusiveness. So we saw that solidarity is important to fight for human rights through specific struggles that we all have in our issues. We saw that public actions and visibility is very important for raising awareness and raising empathy. We need to be conscious of our privilege, but not to take it granted, work for it and share among ourselves. And we need to make the change from inside and not asking for someone to make it instead of us. So this having in mind, thank you again for this wonderful session, and we continue with the workshops. But before ending, just a very short administrative ask for you. So after the workshops, we will have a group picture with all of us down the balcony. So please take your t-shirts with you. So after the workshop session, okay? So before the workshop, have your t-shirts with you, and during the in the balcony, we will have the picture. Okay, then you will be directed through the facilitators with the groups. And during the coffee break, we'd like to invite you again to enjoy also the exhibition that we do have also in the cafe area, so as to feel also the yes. And we have one more.
What's wrong with this? Okay, one more administrative thing. So as some of you know, for the workshops, there is like a big difference of numbers of people amongst groups, and because the groups will be more fruitful if more or less they are the same people. On the coffee break, I will make a new list for all of the 3 workshops, and I will put it there where they are now. So just after you have your coffee and relax, go and check in which group you are placed, and I'm sure that all of the 3 groups will be really interesting because we like the topics, so don't worry.